This is pretty exciting. My first Lord Gadget podcast. Now, in South Africa, it's too early in the day. It's 11, so you can't have a beer, but I'm going to have a beer while I'm talking to you. An oat cream. Um, good. So, what I thought we'd do is I thought we'd first discuss how we know each other. And then I've got 10 quick questions, my rapid fire questions I'm going to ask you. And then I've got a few key topics that I want us to talk through. What you're doing to get Michaela and Tane into fishing. So, fishing with kids, um, fishing buddies, uh, and then some of your favorite lake fishing techniques and some of your favorite river fishing techniques. And then I've got a few items I'm going to read from my diary of various trips that we've done together. Because I've actually got my trout diary here with me. So I've marked four epic trips to talk about. How does that sound?
Well, thank God you got a diary because I wouldn't be able to remember them.
Yeah. Well, exactly. I mean, maybe if nothing else, that's one of the takeaways is the value of a diary. All right. So I was thinking a little bit about how we met each other. So we would have met at Durban High School. You would have been in the H class, and I would have been in the A class.
I started off in the F class, but
you were in the
I
F class
receded
at
to
that
the
time.
H.
Okay, cool. And we probably met through the Durban High School Fly Fishing Club. Would you think? Yeah.
Yeah. I think the club has only just started then, by a guy called Cohen, I remember. And it was very small. There was just a handful of guys. And we trudged along. I knew nothing about fly fishing. At least you'd come from a family where fly fishing was prevalent.
Yes.
But I knew nothing. I didn't have a rod. I didn't have a reel, but I went to the meetings anyway. Yeah.
That's right. And then Carl Haycock was the chairman, and then you were the chairman, and I was the chairman, because we were all chairman over the different years of that club, if I remember rightly. And I remember also that at our library, we had the Fly Fisherman magazine. Do you remember that?
I vaguely remember that, yeah.
Yeah. I remember that because I remember sometimes like the new edition would come out and then like you'd sign it out and then you'd keep it for a week and then I'd sign it out and we'd read that thing cover to cover and look at all those beautiful rivers in the US and all the brands of rods that we couldn't get in South Africa, the Sages and the Loomises and the Winstons that you couldn't get them in South Africa at the time. I'd say also that
obviously the big thing for most of us was we were taught by Jack Blackman.
Jack Blackman, that's right.
From the Kingfisher in those days, I think they called
King
it.
Sports.
Kings.
Yeah,
it was called King
he
Sports.
was that master fly fisher.
Yeah,
and he would. I remember him coming to the gymnasium where we used to play basketball, and I remember him casting, and it's almost like he could effortlessly cast a whole trout line, and then you and I would then go stand on the dam wall, get a wind of 40 kilometers behind us, and then we'd struggle to cast a whole trout line. I remember that. Hey? Yeah, Jack Blackman. So that's sort of who we were all mentored by.
Exactly. And then he introduced us to the FFA.
That's right.
Which Fly Fishing something association. Yeah,
That's right.
Which hardly exists anymore, sadly. But I remember that I was junior member number 19. I remember that.
Yes. I need to try and find that actually. I've got my actual card with my photograph of me at school. I'll see if I can find that. Because that's right, because my father was a member of the Underberg Heimville Trout Fishing Club, and then the FFA started up. And the beauty of both of those clubs were they had their own dams and own access to waters, which is quite something. All right, good. So rapid fire questions. There are actually 11, but 10 of them are fishing related. So who introduced you to fly fishing?
It was a vet I was 12 or 11 or 12 years old. I was banned from taking any form of fishing rods on holiday because I had not done well academically, which seemed to plague me for the rest of my life. Probably because I had more fishing on my mind than anything else.
Fishing and girls.
So we arrived on holiday in a place called Pilgrim's Rest in South Africa, which is not very well known for fly fishing, and yet there were trout in the Breda River.
Mm.
And the neighbor was a vet from the Onderstepoort University, which was a top veterinary school in South Africa. And I saw fishing rods, so I honed in on him. And I was
Wow.
shortly thereafter invited to go fly fishing with him. I'd never done it in my life. And I walked around these ice cold streams up to my waist, I remember, and I eventually caught a trout. And that was me hooked. I didn't
You're
have
hooked.
kits.
Wow.
I knew nothing about fly fishing, but it obviously opened that world, and I started reading everything I could.
Huh,
So
amazing. So I
that's
was
a
going to
long
ask
time
you
ago.
what age that started at, but clearly that started about 12,
11 or 12, yeah.
11 or 12. And in terms of what you like to wear or have for all your equipment, are you a vest guy or chest pack or sling pack or lanyard?
No, definitely a vest guy. I've tried them all. I'm too tall, so half of them aren't made for my length.
Ah,
As it
yes.
is, the vest always looks as though I've got a three-quarter muscle shirt on. Being 6'4.5",
Yes.
not much of the kit is made for guys like me.
Yeah,
But
that's true.
definitely, I'm a vest guy. I've tried
Okay.
all the others
Okay.
and just I never feel comfortable.
Cool. Is your preference for lake fishing or for rivers?
Look, in South Africa, it's so limited on the river side. There are very few great rivers, and having fish places like New Zealand, you come back and you realize that fishing a river in South Africa is very poor. So,
Yes.
so because of that, you're forced to mainly fish lakes. But
I see.
give me half a chance in a river and I'm there. I'll take
Yeah, yeah,
anything.
yeah. Yeah. Which actually that leads into the next question. So, what is your favorite trout fishing destination that you have fished?
So if it, once a year, we go to a place called the Injasuti. Fish were introduced there almost 100 years ago now, and have remained in those streams. And so they're tiny, tiny streams, great fishing, wild trout, if you would want to call them that. Love that. And then once a year, I fish an area called the Dargle, which is very high altitude lakes. Tends to be very good fishing. This year was disappointing, but we had weeks of very poor weather.
Yeah.
And then probably the best trout lake in South Africa is Highland Lodge, which I'm going to in October. More
Ah,
10-pounders caught than anywhere else in Southern Africa.
okay. 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 And if you were to go overseas, where would your
Oh, New
I
Zealand.
mean, you fished overseas in New Zealand, hey?
Yeah, yeah. I
And
mean, yeah. Once you fished
I know,
South
I know.
Island, and for that matter, North Island, because North
Yeah,
Island's just as good, and I think a lot of people don't give it enough credit. Um, you almost spoil for life. I mean,
yeah,
that's
you're right.
fishing at a different level.
Next level. And then in terms of bucket list destinations, do you have anything
Definitely, yeah.
bucket list?
I really would love to fish Russia. Um, there's some mind-blowing fishing in Russia, but you need a lot of money to do it.
Yeah.
Um, I think there's some places in Iceland, brown trout, that have an incredible reputation.
Yes.
Um, yeah, so those would be the for trout, and then fly fishing in general. I still would
Mm,
love to
mm.
land a big tiger fish on a
Yeah,
on a
amazing. Eh?
fly. I've caught reasonable sized ones on fly, but not big ones,
Yes.
um, because it's hard work. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I never told you this actually, but my father, Peter, his destinations that he always spoke about, his bucket list, and he didn't get to any of them, by the way, were New Zealand, Tasmania, and Patagonia. He always spoke about those three, and it's
Yeah.
why going to New Zealand for me was such, like an
Yeah.
emotional thing uh, last
No, I
year.
mean, New Zealand's incredible. Look, my mates go to Patagonia every year. It's a very, very windy place. It's tough fishing. Um, they go to I think it's called Jurassic Lake, and then
Yes,
they catch massive fish on dryers, really
yeah,
10-pounders an average fish.
yeah, yeah.
But they don't highly rate it. They don't rate it. It's really lobbing a fly, and the fish are there.
Mm, mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. What's your favorite rod of all time?
It's interesting you asked me that, because if you asked me that a couple of years ago, I would have, it would have been one of the Sages,
Yes.
I really do enjoy the Z-axis. It's a fairly soft rod actually. My Scott has done me proud across the whole of New Zealand. But in recent times, I'm actually fishing cheap rods, and I'm no longer fishing. I've got an arsenal of sages in the cupboard. In fact, I've even got an R8. But Dean Rupagan, who's a good mate of mine who runs a fly fishing store in South Africa, they are building rods called Horizon rods. They're called Horizon Nitros. And I mean, they in US dollars, they're less than $300. They're probably about $150 actually. That rod is unbelievable value for money. I now own 3 of them. It loads a line like no rod I've thrown, and they're cheap. So you know, you don't worry about. In South Africa, we do have to worry about our kit getting nicked all the time.
Yeah. Well, you can buy a rod like that for the same cost as getting your Scott repaired.
Yeah,
You get a new rod. I mean, it's crazy. Good. What
well,
about trout
incredible.
line?
They even come with an extra tip and an extra
Tip.
second length, which
That's great that that's what
it's a
Dean's doing.
very
Good
well
on him.
crafted rod. I
Yeah.
mean, believe me, the finishes are not cheap by any means.
Yeah.
But I mean, I can throw a
Impressive.
full fly line on that on a 6-weight without
On a
too much
6.
effort.
Yeah.
And as I've got older, the like the R8, the Sage R8, it's an incredible rod. But by the end of day of casting it, my arm is broken.
You're exhausted. I know we've spoken about this, and you're absolutely right. You're broken. Good. What about trout lines? Because I tell you why I ask this, Rod, is because you can change the nature of a trout rod by overlining it by one, or going for a Rio Gold versus a Predator, or whatever. What is your favorite trout line?
So the last 3 years, I've really honed in on line and the weight of a rod. So I've always fished traditionally a 5-weight, pretty much as long as I can remember. I've moved everything to 6 weights, and I've been experimenting with lines. I've been fishing a lot with a Scientific Angler. I've been fishing a lot with airflows. I've had some Rios, and you will find from a floating line, I don't think you can beat the Scientific Angler. That's my personal opinion.
The MPX or the Infinity?
The Infinity.
The Infinity, yeah. And do you go for the textured one, or do you go for the smooth?
No, I don't like the texture. I prefer the smooth myself. I don't like the noise going through my eyes.
Neither do I.
And especially when you're working with tiny little bugs and leeches, I'm sure that vibration goes down the line. The intermediate, I'm still haven't found. I'm fishing between a camo Scientific Angler and
that's the one I like.
Yeah, but I do find that it bunches a lot, especially in cold weather. So you halfway through a cast and you get a bunch. I do fish the airflow intermediates as well, the 5-second. So I haven't really settled on one that I love there. But what I am doing is I'm fishing a lot more emerger lines, subsonic or sub lines, which just it's like it's halfway between an intermediate and a floating. And fishing much smaller flies.
Okay, good. What about tippet? What's your favorite brand of tippet?
Look, I do use Trout Hunter. It certainly is one of the best when I can get it. Otherwise, I fish Scientific Angler. Again, I fish Airflow. It depends on the situation, but I mean, this year I only fished Scientific Angler, and I wasn't let down at all. I was fishing light.
And do you fish the fluoro or the mono, the normal nylon?
It depends on where I'm fishing. So if I'm fishing amongst a lot of structure, then I'll probably put the mono on to say there's a little bit of give and the stretch. If I'm fishing super clean on tiny nymphs, then I'll fish the fluoro.
Yeah. More sensitive on the take.
Yeah, and also it's supposed to be that it's less visible. I still haven't worked that one out.
That Trout Hunter, a spool of that in South Africa, that must be expensive, hey, Rod?
No, it's very expensive. And so when you go to a place like Highland Lodge, you fish 1x, 0x Trout Hunter only. Otherwise, you're not going to land those fish. They're just too big, a lot of weed.
Wow.
It's deciding whether you're going to go fluoro or not.
Okay.
But you know what? I've always said if you're going to quibble over something like that, the cost of driving to the trip and the rod and the really it's a small
Yeah,
number.
yeah, absolutely. All right, good. Do you have a favorite fly that you're fishing at the moment, or a couple of flies?
So the winter months here, the a flashback nymph size 16, size 18, without a shadow of doubt. In the summer months, then it's going to be philo damsels, philo dragons, skinny damsels, atomic worms, water boatmen, that type of fly. Yeah,
So we've come a long way from just chucking a Mrs. Simpson out there like we used
yeah.
to for the first five or
There's not a
6 years.
single Mrs. Simpson or Hamill's Killer in my box, and in
Oh yeah,
fact,
Hamill's Killer.
most of my mates,
Yeah.
if I rocked up with one of those, I'd probably be sent home.
Oh, that's funny.
They still catch a hell of a lot of fish for friends, and all my a lot of friends still have them in their boxes, and they're
Yes.
phenomenal flies.
Yes.
But I do find it more fun to fish a realistic pattern, and
that's true.
You do tend to catch slightly bigger fish often.
Okay. Good. That's good to know.
Yeah.
All right, good. And this is an 11th bonus question for you. I'm just chucking this one in. Are you Nikon or Canon, or have you moved away just for your cameras?
When you know the answer to this question, my whole life I've been Nikon. But in recent times, I believe Sony has left them all in the dust, and I really do think if you can get through the 400 pages of menus on a Sony, it is without a doubt the best camera. They can't compete anymore. They really. I still reckon Nikon is made for photographers. It's been built for photographers. But these new Sonys are, and I don't even own them anymore, Rob. I'm on the more simple stuff now. Sony makes a range of cameras with fixed lenses on them that are phenomenal for the guys like you and I aren't. I don't do pro photography anymore. I just don't have the time. But yeah, these Sonys are mind blowing.
So I haven't told you this actually, but with my YouTube channel, I want to lift the quality of the video up a little bit. So I've been shooting DJIs almost exclusively. The Pocket 3 for talking, and the Action 5 on a neck cam, and then I've got a couple of the drones. But I've just bought a Lumix GH6 to do videos and time-lapse B-roll stuff with. The instruction manual was 1,000 pages.
Yeah,
whereas a DJI, you just take it out and you can just use it. They've nailed that. You're so right about the complication of these Sonys, the Canons I used to shoot and the Nikons that you used to shoot. It's just so complicated. All right, good. Moving on. Okay, equipment. How many rods do you have? And luckily, Lauren will never see this podcast, so
I wouldn't know. I actually don't know.
Okay. Good.
I'm in the range of 20 with my kids now.
I'm probably the same, about 20. And then what's the most recent rod you've bought? What's your current rod? I think it is that R8 that you bought, eh?
No, I just bought another 2 Horizon Nitros this week.
Oh, okay. Good. Okay.
Because I'm going to Highland Lodge and I just throw so well. Why not?
Yeah, nice. And you went 6 weight for both, and have you got a 10-foot 6 weight?
No, they're all 9 foot at 6 weight. Yeah.
All right, perfect. Okay, the first of our sort of more serious topics. I want to talk to you a little bit about what you're doing to get Michaela and Tane, your daughter and your son, into fly fishing. And I'll just set the scene here a little bit. So I've also been trying to get Linton and Spencer into fly fishing. And what I've done for them is I've bought them rods, medium priced rods, let's say, with reels, their own setups that they've got. But with respect to the rivers, we do quite a lot of river fishing in Australia. With respect to the rivers, I've actually started them Euro nymphing. Now, you might ask me to now wipe my mouth out with soap when I mention that, but let me just explain why. It's because it's actually quite an easy cast to do when you're fishing in a river. And with your left hand, you don't have to do anything with the left hand. You don't need to retrieve.
Yeah.
because you're pretty well just lifting the rod up and then dropping it down as it goes past you. And it's
Correct.
more
Yeah.
close quarters fishing. And I've been fishing with them both, and I've had great success with that. And then on a longer fishing trip with Linton, I gave him one of my rods. I actually gave him my Asquith in a 6 weight with a Rio Gold, and I let him fish that. So the best kit that I have, I let him fish that. And actually, it took a couple of days, and then suddenly, Rod, his casting action clicked in, and he was able to catch some fish properly casting, which was very rewarding for me and for him. But I will say I have struggled with it. And we've just got back, Linton and I have just got back from a week fishing a private trophy trout dam. He fished the whole week and he didn't catch anything. I got about 6 or so, but he didn't catch at all. He was actually quite disappointed when he got back. So what is it that you are doing to try and get your kids are a little bit younger than mine? How old are Michaela and Tane
Look,
now?
so Tane's 11 years old.
Mm-hmm.
He's genetically so similar to me that it hasn't taken too much encouragement. Just to mention word fishing, any way, shape, or form. I mean, we fish a lot because we're not only fly fishermen, we're huge marlin fishermen and boat fishermen, and so Tane has been very easy, and he is. I mean, he's addicted. He sits on the lawn day after day after day in the afternoon practicing and casting. And I don't think I ever really did that as a kid.
No.
Well, I did a little bit of it.
Well,
My
wait a
daughter
second. Wait
McKay.
a second. Just on that, pretty sure that I heard that once you tied your tippet
Dog.
to your dog and practiced
Yeah. No, I did that a
fighting
few
the
times. I
dog.
think I did it to my brother a few times.
Poor old Michael.
Because those days we caught so few fish, we would take
We
anything.
did.
I mean, I've been known to hook a horse as well, actually. um, so we go to these amazing destinations, and I think naturally the kids get interested. Michaela is now 18 years old. I don't think she'll ever be a huge fisherman. She enjoys the outdoors. She enjoys being part of the scene. So we started off much the same with the kids. I taught both of them initially what in essence is euro nymphing, similar things, small streams, small fish. Tane picked it up quicker than Michaela. And then when we go and fish the lakes, the fact they have flow tubes, that's all I had to do. And they
Yeah.
go and fin around all day. And then
Yeah.
also trying to make sure the venues I go to, actually the fishing's reasonably good. Because,
Yeah.
as you say, very quickly a kid can become quite negative if they're not catching. So,
It's one topic that I want us to come back to a little bit later on is the topic of how well stocked the dams are. We're not going to talk about it now, but Matt, I think a lot of the dams that we grew up fishing were hardly stocked at all. And
well,
now we're fishing dams that are properly
they
stocked.
had
And
heavy fishing pressure. They weren't stocked particularly well, probably, and then they had huge seasonal temperature fluctuations.
yeah,
So, I do a lot of research to find decent water, and then the other thing I've done, as a parent, you're not a great teacher always. I certainly am not.
me neither.
I also want to get stuck into my fishing because I don't do it often enough. So I hire a professional guide. Jeremy
Yeah,
Rochester is one of the top guides in South Africa. He comes along on all our trips and he looks after the kids. And he's
that's
got the
fantastic.
enthusiasm. And you know what? Because you're taking a professional guide, the rod, the rig, everything's set up properly. He puts them in an area where they've got the highest chance and they catch fish. And I mean, Michaela, my daughter, the first time she ever went fishing on a lake, 2 casts later, she had a 4.5 pounder. I remember
Yeah.
you and I as kids, 4.5 pounder. We were celebrating. We thought we just won the World Cup.
Well, it's interesting. I was looking through today. I'm pretty sure my first 4 pounder I ever got was with you
At
when we
Hayos.
fished that. No. Oh, that's right. I might have got that one at Hayho's.
It was a cock.
But
It was a cock fish on
yeah, that's right.
a tree dam or forest dam. I think it
No,
was
that's
called.
right.
It was.
That top dam. But you're
You
right.
caught it on the surface with a muddler.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
then later on, you caught one up in the Free State, at Kingston,
Yeah, we're going to
also
talk
in the
about that.
shallows.
I've got that to talk about. But you're right. It took a long time. Those 4 pounders when they weren't happening for us before we were
No,
19 or yeah. Okay, that's good. Okay, perfect. Next topic. fishing buddies. I'll give you a little bit of a background with this one. So actually, I've really struggled to find fishing buddies. It's not to say that I don't have fishing buddies to fish with. I'm always finding people to fish with, but a fishing buddy is so much more than just someone that you fish with. It's someone who you share your life story with. It's someone who you hope has a similar attitude to kids and the wife that you do. There's drinking, but it's not drinking so much that it impacts the fishing the next day. You know what I mean? It's there's a whole mix of it. How are you doing with respect to fishing buddies, and who are you fishing with?
Well, I mean, Rob, since you left South Africa, I don't really have a permanent fishing buddy. I do in the marlin world, which is a different kind of fishing. But on the fly fishing world, my son is very rapidly becoming my fishing buddy. So we've just spent 2 weeks together, getting up at 4 and coming home at 5 at night, fishing the entire day. And my fishing buddy is my son. And then you pay a fishing buddy, a guy like Jeremy.
Yes.
Jeremy is a good guy, and we get on really, really well. So he comes along as my fishing buddy. But and then I've got Dean Repagan and that crowd. But I do find more and more that I'm actually becoming more selfish with my fishing, and it's nice to share it with someone. But I also quite enjoy the quietness, etc. My job is just so hardcore around people that I don't need it as much as I used to. But let's be honest, going out on a float tube the whole day with somebody is a hell of a lot of fun, rather than being
the best thing in the world. Best thing in the world. I actually fished with an Australian guide in New Zealand a couple of years ago, Chris, and then I caught up with him at some private lakes in Victoria earlier on this year, at a place called Millbrook Lakes, which I think is a similar quality to the place you're about to go to. And I was actually really emotional to see Chris, because you've shared this intense week when you've just fished and talked about fishing. And then to meet him later, see him later on, I was actually quite emotional. I think in quite a quick time, you make quite good friends with these guides.
Yeah. No, I mean, you want like-minded people, and people who fish for the right reasons, and
Okay, next topic. So lake techniques. Okay, so you've always been a superb lake fisherman. Now, for me, I like to fish from the bank. I love a floating line. I love bringing it over structure. I love bringing it over, where it comes from deep to shallow, watercolor changes. That's the type of fishing that I really like to do. And I'm very often fishing a floating line with quite a long leader and weighted nymphs. What is your favorite lake technique?
So I've learned a hell of a lot, and spending a lot of time with a guy like Jeremy. If you want to catch really big fish, you've got to try and fish as much as you can from the side. They are very, very aware to movement, both on the lake side, but also in the lake. I've learned totally unweighted flies. So I have no weight in any of the flies I fish in lakes, unless it's the summer months and I'm trying to get down into deep cold water. Yeah, without a doubt, I fish a lot of floating lines, especially in the winter months. Tiny flies. This is winter. Winter's different because the water temperatures here can get quite low, and you're fishing a lake between sort of 8 degrees Celsius and maybe 12 if you're lucky. Yes. And the fish are feeding on small, as opposed to when we were kids, we were throwing the biggest flies we could throw. The summer
biggest
months,
flies, and then fishing in a float tube with always leaky waders. I mean, there was never a trip we didn't go on where one of our leaders.
I finally solved that after a lifetime, and I will only buy Patagonias. We nicknamed them Patagucci's, because they cost that much. And I fished 2 seasons now without a leak. But on a pair of waders, it cost me 4 times the price of the waders I used to buy.
Yeah. But by the way, those booties on the Patagonia, those slightly thicker booties, they are a go. They're so good.
You can't beat them. So in the summer months, there's no doubt around the weed beds. Again, small flies. probably intermediate lines because you just want to get a little bit of depth, but fishing ultra slow. And
Okay.
that's what I've learned, is that most of the bug life that trout are eating a lot of are very, very slow moving. So, my favorite fly would be a red-eyed damsel, a skinny damsel. It's a very
Skinny
thin fly.
damsel, yeah.
Um, 12 would be a really big one. I'd probably fish them smaller,
Yeah.
14s, and fish
Yeah.
them around weed beds. A atomic worm probably trailing off the back of that, or
Yes.
a water boatman, Corexo,
Yeah.
a highly effective fly. And
Yeah.
then if the water is quite warm and the fish are quite active, then I would move towards things like dragonflies,
Okay.
all the different types of dragonflies, hover dragons, philo dragons, lake dragons, and again fished around weed beds, and that would be on
Interesting.
the tubes.
Now, I fished with a guy, Phil Weigel. Him and his brother Mark are the guys that set up this Millbrook Lakes, which is down in Victoria, by the way. If you ever came here, that'd be a place for you and I to go and fish. And Phil, he said something very similar. He said you can, you can never fish a fly too fast. That was sort of his. You can never fish a fly slow enough. Is sort of what he
Yeah,
was
too
saying.
slow. Yeah.
Very much, yeah, too slow. Very much.
Well, on the
Same
floating
opinion as
line,
you.
most of it is wind
Super slow.
drift. On a floating line, most of it would be wind drift, and if it's too windy, then it's not going to be effective. But
Okay.
I mean, I'm talking so slow that yes, you are on the bottom, you're touching the bottom,
Yeah.
and it's incredible. I mean, I catch way more fish than I used to, way more. But you have to be hell of a careful at watching the end of that line for the slight movement.
Dip down.
Because it's so subtle.
And what sort of length of leaders? Because I mean, this is another thing. You and I, we used to fish 8-foot leaders back in the day. Definitely nothing longer than a rod, and now it'd be nothing to fish.
I'm fishing on average at least 12 foot.
12-foot. Okay.
Yeah.
And what do you do?
Do
Do you buy like a 2X leader and put a tippet ring on, and then
I
put
put a
something on
3X leader on,
3X
tippet
leader?
ring,
Yeah.
and then I'll probably put about 1 meter to 2 meters of 4X and sometimes 5X. Yeah.
Okay. Is 5X about as low as you go? Because that is about as low as I go.
Yeah. I mean, especially if there's a lake that's got reasonable size fish in it. I mean, this year I lost probably a fish of a lifetime because I was fishing 5X. And it was a monster fish. I knew it was a monster fish. I'd seen it. And 3 days later, it was caught by someone else, and it still had my UV flashback nymph in its jaw.
Oh no, that hurt. By the way, that UV pheasant tail, I had great luck. I don't know if that's a UV pheasant tail you're talking about, but I had great luck.
This would have been a hare's ear. This particular one was a
UV.
UV hare's ear.
Oh, hare's ear. Okay.
UV dubbing. But there's no doubt it does work.
Okay. That's good. Okay, cool. By the way, I've fished a lot of 4 and 4.5X. I don't know whether you've got any of that Trout Hunter 4.5X, but I've had great luck with that. Because normally I say don't go for the half X's, but the 4.5X, that's one exception. I do like that. Okay, good. What about favorite river techniques? What is it that you like? For example, I really love to fish a dry dropper, which is something we never did growing up.
Exactly.
We were typically, I mean, I don't know. I didn't used to fish a dry fly much when we were fishing together. I'd often nymph, but you'd watch the end of your fly line, and then you had like an 8-foot leader. That was sort of how I used to nymph.
Yeah.
Now I do a lot of dry dropper. What do you like?
If it's trout, then a dry dropper. And if it doesn't, if the conditions sometimes in riffles where it's just moving too quick, then I'll probably fish a tungsten beaded fly, but I'll have a strike indicator of sort.
Yes. What, like a New Zealand strike indicator or an Oros?
If it's too riffly, even those won't stay afloat. So then you put what we call an Oros.
Oros, I love those too. Yeah, do you have the chartreuse Oros in South Africa? You can see that a mile away, the chartreuse one.
Yeah.
These are all things that
interesting. When I fish lakes, in the winter months, I will always have a strike indicator on the surface, and depending on the depth, then I will alter to the depth and just then let that slowly move on the bottom. It must
And
be
is
on
that
the
the
bottom.
chartreuse? Is that the Oros in the extra small size? It's almost like a square one, or is it in the
No,
small
they're
one,
little.
which is a
They're
small
made by
round ball?
they're made by airflow, and they've
Oh
got
yeah,
a little scoop cap at the
yeah.
bottom.
Screw on the top. Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I think they're called airlock, maybe.
yeah, and they don't. I mean, you can still cast. Hardly affect
Yeah.
your casting.
Okay.
If you're fishing for yellowfish, now yellowfish we haven't mentioned, and you
No,
haven't done that, Rob. But
no, I
I,
haven't.
I
No.
tell you what, yellowfish is. It is a trout with a heart of a lion. Um,
Wow.
and they I've bent more hooks on them than anything else. I've been snapped off more than anything else. I've
Hmm.
broken rods with them. In fact, a 5-weight rod you're going to be laughed at. And there you're going to fish at a really heavy tungsten bead. And if you're not bouncing on the bottom and actually seeing the stops, you won't catch them. But
Hmm.
as soon as you go to that, oh, it's quite a fish to catch. There's 3 different species of yellowfish. The largemouth is sort of one that would go for more terrestrials and streamers, but the smallmouth, and they're big. I mean, 6, 8, 10 pounds is very average, and man, are they
Wow.
strong. Yeah, they're
Wow.
very strong.
That's funny. That's
So that was
cool.
a new fishing that I've
Yeah.
picked up,
Yeah.
and
So,
and
so
and
you
that's
have,
exciting. That's on the
yeah,
level of fishing in New Zealand,
I see.
except that you're fishing, the Vaal River, the Orange
Yeah.
River,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and again you don't cost more than your euro nymph. That's what you do.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
I've seen a video of guys doing that up in Lesotho also, maybe. Is that right? Can
Yeah,
you
so
fish for
you
them
get
up
it. You
there?
get it up
Yeah.
in those big lakes that they built in Lesotho for the water.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Um,
that's interesting.
And
So
Jeremy,
you're happy
our
to
fishing
fish?
guide, he's the absolute specialist at this. So he goes and fishes these little foam hoppers, tiny foam hoppers on Stadfontein Dam, and
Okay.
I mean, he's booked out the whole year to take clients to go
Wow.
and sight fish with foam hoppers on the surface. Um, Extraordinary fishing, and
Wow.
big and strong fish. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Maybe that's something to do next time I head out to South Africa. So you're happy to do the weighted nymphs in the rivers, but in the lakes you tend to stick
No
away
weight.
from the weighted nymph. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. For the
especially if
more
it's a
natural
small
natural
fly.
action.
I mean, if
Yeah.
if it's a dragonfly, I'll have some like a heel weight, but
Yeah.
certainly on a small fly, 0 weight. The less
Do
weight
you,
is to make it more natural.
do you fish split shot anymore?
No, I've got it
No,
in
me
my
neither.
pack, and I schlep it around, and I
Me
hear it
too.
tinker
I'm
around
I'm the
sometimes.
same.
But no, I mean, there's definitely places in New Zealand you would do it in fast flowing rivers for big fish
Yeah.
trying to get
Yeah. Yeah.
tungsten bead down. But
We
no,
have to get it down quick. Yeah.
yeah,
Good. All right. So we're going to move on to my trout diary. So there's 4 things that I've got here on the trout diary. So the first one I'm going to read is, okay, this is the first entry where I know we were fishing together, but I didn't mention you. The second and third, I mentioned you by name. So this is the 1st of April, 1986. 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th of April, 1986. And it's Orange Free State, Kingston. Saw a grasshopper on the water, saw it
yeah.
rise, and it was gone. Um, put on a large mudler minnow and caught on about the 8th cast. Fairly good fight, played tight line due to knot in the fly line. 8 other fish caught. So that
I
was
remember it
that
so well.
dam that Carl Haycock had access to, that
That's
we
right.
went on. And you know, one of our little topics to talk about. Like, I don't think it was specific to this one because we were pretty young. But do you remember that you'd have a schoolmaster that would take you on the trip, and they would drive the school combi, and we'd all pile in, 8 of us or something like that. And then I have these memories of us stopping, the master stopping to fill the car up with fuel, and all of us ducking out to the bottle store and buying
Well,
booze
that
to
certainly
take
was in
up.
the later years. So,
Yeah,
so
I think
that
it was in the
particular
later
trip,
years. Yeah.
that particular trip was when Halley's Comet was visible, and
Oh,
I remember
yeah.
that you stole whiskey and peppermint liqueur from your parents, and we sat on a blanket watching Halley's Comet
Hades Comet.
at
Yes.
night. drinking this alcohol without the masters knowing. And
Yeah,
that was the trip that you caught that fish up in the shallows with the
that fish.
muddler.
Yeah,
I remember it
yeah,
well.
that
And it was
fish. So
extremely cold.
yeah, so I've got that here as 3 pounds 12 ounces,
Really
1.8 kgs. So that's in there. So that's hey, that's a great. That's right. We saw Haley's
funny.
Comet together,
I remember it.
1986.
I somehow remember that fish being much bigger, but it's incredible.
Yeah,
It's a shame.
so do I. So do I, by the way. All right, next one. Oh, mate, this is such great memories. This is Hey Ho's. So here it is here. Uh, Fished at Hey Ho's in the morning, sub-zero, ice formed on the guides, explored from about 11 a.m. No luck, went down to a dam near the rifle range.
Yeah.
Um, Rodney got a fish at 9:40 the night before on a self-tied black woolly bugger with flashaboo, very good fight, released. So
I
that was
remember
where
that.
the night before we night fished for the first time
Yeah. Yeah.
under the full moon, and you caught that fish on a flashaboo. Do you
Yeah.
remember that?
And it's amazing. I fished at night quite a bit now, because that's when you get big browns. There's no doubt. Big browns move at night. Big flies. But
Oh, wonderful.
I remember. Well, I remember. We didn't even have torches in those days. We had gas lamps, and we
That's
used the
right.
gas lamp to not only heat ourselves, but
Yeah. Actually, just reading further on from that one, my writing is so tiny here; it's hard to see. Um, I then mentioned here that I caught something after casting into deep water and walking down the bank. Very good fight. That was a 1.4 kg fish on a Mrs. Simpson, funny enough. Had to fish light tackle. Okay, this is quite funny. Eggs thrown from the dam wall produced 3 fish close to the bank. Craig
yeah,
McDonnell, caught a 4.5 pound fish from the wall after seeing a huge rise when the fish took his fly, then a 2 pounder the next cast. Casting over the rise, took strongly, something about the shallows, and then Craig caught a beautiful 5.25 pound fish.
yeah.
Do you remember that?
I remember it
We
well.
had never seen a fish that big in our lives.
He caught it on a Jack Hotcat. Can you
Yes,
remember
it
it?
was. It was on that Jake Hotcat, yeah, which was Jack Blackman's fly.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's Nottingham Road, Rifle Dam. So that's my second little
It's full of
memory. It
bass
goes.
now. I've been there to have a look at it, and it's not nearly as big as I remember. I went back about 3 years ago. I went and had a quick look, and yeah, it's still there, but it's a very small dam, and yet it looked huge to us.
To us, it was huge. When I did Joburg to sea, I was cycling around in that area, not by Rifle Dam, but by Hay Ho's, and I was riding my bike and having a big cry, big drizz at the same time. I remember that area. All right, third one. Okay, this is great. All right, so this is also 1986 actually, and it's a stretch called the Banks on the Umzinkulu. Fished with no luck at Latani for 2 days. Billy Hughes put us on the river. My dad was on this trip with us, DHS Fly Fishing Club. We caught 24 fish overall. This is talking about me. 2 fish caught covering rises, rest in pools, fishing into the shade. Retrieve slow, jerky, and with a pause. 3 jerks. Very good fights. Jumped many times. Dad 2, Rodney 7, all released. Do you remember that trip?
I remember being so hungry that we killed a fish and we cooked it on a stone by making a fire next to the stone. We hadn't eaten that morning.
Oh, that's
Best
hysterical.
started I've ever eaten.
Oh, that is hysterical. So, so I do remember that eventually we started going on these trips, these fly fishing trips, Durban High School fly fishing trips, where we would go to the bottle store. Like I definitely remember going one on it was the road towards Strack Gardens, and we stayed at
So
some
Rest Mount, the
cottage
place
there.
was called The place was called Rest Mount Inn.
Mount.
And
Yeah.
it was a place for underprivileged children to actually go on holiday, but our teacher
Yes.
organized it. A guy called Mel Stain met us there, and that was our
Yes.
first introduction to proper river nymphing. He taught
Yeah.
us how to nymph with the Mzimkhulu nymph, and then it started to rain and rain, and that was the start of the Des Moines floods in South Africa, the biggest cyclone to have ever hit South Africa.
Wow.
And we struggled to get home, so we hardly fished that trip. But the alcohol and cigarettes was the first introduction.
Yeah, I
To that
remember
trip.
someone
and
locking themselves
and it
away
got
in the bathroom,
yeah,
and
it got seriously out of
got
control with
okay. So I found that trip. Yeah, this is a bonus trip. So this is
John
20.
Ivins was
Yeah, John Ivins. Yeah. Okay, so this is the 28th and 29th of November,
yeah
1987. Umzinkulu Rest Mount. Lovely stretch. Met Mel Stain and
yeah.
Patrick Lewis. Fished with 2 weight for the first time. What a pleasure. Quite a few fish caught. Learned how to fish fast water, pockets,
That's it.
and dead drift techniques.
Yeah.
We didn't catch many fish that trip.
No, we caught very few. I
yeah.
think if I remember correctly, because of all the rain, the rivers muddied up. We managed to get access to Rainbow Lakes, I think it was called, in near Dragon's Rest in Underberg. And I remember getting on my float tube, which I had no waders, and it was snowing, if you remember.
Oh, wow.
It was actually snowing. And I got into my float tube in my underwear and went out fishing and got a fish.
What a hoot. Wow. Okay, good. So now, fourth and last trip. Okay, this is Forest Lodge. And there's a lot I want to unpack around Mike Poplet in this Forest Lodge. So, okay, by the time this is Forest Lodge, this is the 30th of July, 1993. By the time Rodney and I were fishing from the bank, there were plenty of fish rising. Okay, so I got a 4-pounder. Caught on an HLS Orvis 8.5-foot 4-weight and a sink-tip line. Fished as a guest of Hugo, the owner. Permission organized by Mike Poplet. And then eventually, I say here, from a float tube in the deep channel on the northwest bank in front of the owner's house. So we obviously fished from the bank initially, and then we got into float tubes on this. And actually, Rod, I've got Forest Lodge.
We actually started in float tubes. We battled. We got 1 or 2 fish in front of the owner's house. Then we went to the dam wall in that corner, and we murdered the fish for the next.
Yeah, that's right.
For the rest of the afternoon, I mean, it was the most fish you and I'd ever caught in a day in our lives.
It was. And I remember they were the hardest fighting fish I've ever caught in my life. You remember how? So, what was the story with that dam? Was it overstocked or something? And then Mike Poplet found out about it, and somehow we got access. Do you remember?
No, it was a really big lake that no one had access to because it was private. And through Mike, who was a supplier of mine at the time, supplying me fresh guinea fowl, if you remember.
Yeah, guinea fowl.
We managed to get onto that lake, so it was never fished. And being that time of the year when the fish were active on the spawning beds, we didn't know much about the spawning beds. I know a hell of a lot more about it today. But and there were just this. I mean, remember how big that lake was?
It was huge.
It was huge.
Yeah. And
do you remember me shooting the guinea fowl on the way home with my
your
revolver out
gat,
the window
yeah,
while we were traveling? And I never thought I'd hit it.
I do remember that. Funny enough, Linton's just been to South Africa to go and see his cousins, and he went to this one place that one of his cousins' husbands is running, and the guy said to Linton, he said, "Like, is anything you want to do while you're in South Africa?" So Linton said, "Well, I'd love to drive down the road shooting a handgun out the window of the car." So the guy said, "Well, here's the handgun," and Linton we're shooting it out, because in Australia there's no private ownership of guns here. So guns, we don't know anything about guns in Australia.
No, of course.
So it's the opposite of South Africa. Oh, that's fantastic. Now, the reason I wanted to bring up Forest Lodge was because I would say up until that time, for you and I, in a typical season, we would catch 20 trout. We'd do 20 trips
Absolutely.
and catch 20 trout. And
Yeah.
suddenly, when we met Mike Poplet and we fished those 2 dams on his property, and then we
Yeah.
got access to Forest Lodge, suddenly, like, let's be honest, hey, it got to next level where you could have a day where you could catch 6 in a day, or 8 or 10 even in a day.
Yeah.
It just makes me wonder, did we spend a lot of time fishing those FFA dams where really there weren't many fish in them? What do you think about that?
No, I think so. I think, just the old story is a lot of people fishing, a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And then so the fishing wasn't great. And then, then I met Dean Repagan and that crowd. And the next thing I was, I was starting to fish on just really class waters.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. Yeah. I mean, especially still water fishing, because it's so reliant on stocking and good stocking programs and understanding stocking. It's different to a river which sort of self-regulates.
Yeah, self-propagates. Yeah. It's interesting. So I was going to tell you a little funny story here. So do you ever remember McDougall Dam?
Of course.
Okay, cool. So actually,
You
funny
embarrassed me with my girlfriend because you caught me shagging my girlfriend and I got into trouble.
Well, that's what this story is about, not about shagging. Actually, I've got my dad's 8-pounder over here. I was going to show it to you quickly. My mom brought it back from South Africa. Do you remember this? We had this above the bar at our home in Chelmsford Road.
Absolutely. I remember it well.
The biggest trout that any of us really, you and I, that we'd ever seen. So my dad got that at McDougall's. So eventually it got to a point where there was that cottage at McDougall, on the McDougall farm, and you could book it. And just one quick story here now. So I go there one year with Barbara, and just as well, she caught a trout in the dam. She was loving life, and then she goes to look at the visitors book, and she signs Barbara and Rob. Lovely time, romantic. Rob made bacon and egg breakfast. Then she starts paging back, and it's Rob and Claire paging back. Rob and Debbie paging back. Rob and Alison. We didn't talk for about a month after she had read the visitors book. We still talk
amazing.
about
We never
that.
had great fishing there, but we had great parties there.
We did have great parties there.
I don't
that was great.
Ever having great fishing there.
Yeah. No, I did okay. I did okay there. So
I've got to run. I've got my next meeting teeing up.
Well, I think it's absolutely perfect. I wanted to try and keep the chat to about an hour, which is what we've done, 53 minutes, which is absolutely perfect. Rod, thanks so much for your time. It was great to catch up.
And
really next time, hopefully, we can do this face to face.
Yeah,
give my love to Lauren. Yeah, let's try and do it again. Give my love to Lauren and the kids.
I will do
Cheers,
it.
mate.
Thanks, Sam.
Okay.
Appreciate
Bye.
it.